Most dangerous belief system, there are three things: that they can't do the work. I've seen so many clients with a defeatist mentality before they even go on the interview. One or two things that were listed in job description: I don't do that, or I can't do that, or I've never done that, I shouldn't apply. Then you've already taken yourself out from the running. Instead of talking from what you can't do, talk about the strengths of what you've done. And see, that's another thing of how we frame our communication to the employer.
Hi, Dominic. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Good. Welcome to Peak Performance Perspective, where we help entrepreneurs master health, wealth, and relationships. Now, as a seasoned career and scholarship coach, what does peak performance mean to you?
Staying balanced in all aspects of my life. And I believe that's the six keys: relationships, mental health, financial, spiritual, also physical and educational needs.
Is it really possible to be balanced in all these areas all the time?
No, it is not. It does take a lot of practice to stay in balance, understanding your schedule, understanding your moods, setting yourself up for success throughout your day and your week, talking to your partner, but no, not all the time. It is a challenge.
In order to be successful, sometimes we need to really double down on what we want to achieve. Being balanced sometimes is a different word for average because you're just averaging out in everything. So, how do you really get far in your career or in your business or your passion when you're just averaging out with every other responsibility you have?
I think that in many cases, I believe being average and sometimes actually is fine. I know for myself as a person that has put in 60, 70-hour weeks working on my business, that's taken away from being having time with my wife or spending time with my kid. Or if I'm always with my kid and my wife, then sometimes I'm burnt out in having my own personal space, finding things that I really enjoy outside of my business and outside of my family. So I think that there has to be some balance, and being average on some of these aspects are fine. I think that we want, you hear folks say, oh, I got to grind out. I got to push myself hard, which is fine. But I think that you don't want to do that all the time. There has to be some equilibrium, if you will, so that you have time and energy and effort that you can put in other aspects of your life to be a whole person. I don't believe in giving 100%, that you have to give 100% all the time. If I give 70 or 80% of my effort and energy, and maybe 20 or 30% to something else that's on the plate, that's pressing, I think that's totally fine. But it's also how we communicate, we show up so folks are aware. For example, in many cases, like this weekend, I had a really great time with my family. That was time I could have been spending on my business, hopefully getting more clients. But it was really enjoyable. I had a really great time. And so now I'm on Peak Performance Podcast. I'm doing a business activity, right? Now, this might be a 4 hour that we're talking, but my wife understands. She's definitely open to me being on the podcast because I spent at least 80% of the weekend with her and my daughter. So I think that being average in aspects of our life is fine. And sometimes we might not be able to give 80 or 90. Sometimes we give the whole 100. Just depends on how the flow of our week goes, how we set ourselves up for success.
Yeah. What I really like about your approach, it's grounded in truthfulness and reality. It sounds amazing to be able to say, yeah, let's give 100% all the time, but it's not possible to do that. So I really enjoy your perspective and the truthfulness in it. Before having a successful business in helping people get jobs and get scholarships to go to colleges, you were a teacher. What
Yeah.
was the exact moment you knew that you had to leave teaching?
After teaching for several years, and how, let me caveat, take a step back. When I got into teaching, had just graduated from college with a Bachelor of Science in Business Management, but I had no idea what I wanted to do with that. I was confused. I was applying to jobs thinking, hey, I just got out of college. I have this degree now, spent my 4 years, and guess what? No one called me back. I must have applied to over 100 positions. This is a common thing that most folks especially go through in what they call the quarter life crisis. We're trying to figure out what you want to do, not what your parents said to do. What is the thing that what is the gifts and how you manifest those gifts in your life? And so that was happening at the time. And so teaching became an opportunity that I came across. They quickly got back to me. It's probably the only job I applied to that said, hey, let's set up an interview. And after I did the interview, I was literally on the first day after the interview. The principal left me in the classroom and I had to figure it out. The first 2 years were extremely rough. There were many nights I had no clue. And I felt that I felt that I was unlocking a new gift, but also I didn't belong in the classroom. It wasn't something I was passionate about. And I think that got exacerbated after 6 years of being in the classroom. I actually left teaching in the classroom and I became a behavior specialist. And behavior specialist is someone that will work with students that sometimes have behavioral issues. Sometimes they could have disabilities that may prevent them from being in the classroom. So your job is to monitor the classroom, make sure students are engaged. If a teacher needs a break for a student disrupting the class, your job is to take that student out. But even after doing that and coming out of the classroom, I realized at that moment, it was one day I broke down because it was a young lady I was dating at the time. We were having some issues, and I had spent a lot of money to go see this young lady outside of where I was living. So she lived in 2 states away. So I would take the train and go see her. And I was spending so much money. I was dealing with that. I wasn't happy at my job, and I hadn't been happy for a long time because I just didn't feel like I was utilizing the gift of that I discovered of writing. And I've always been a writer since 5th grade. And I also realized I had another gift. I love to teach. I just didn't love being in the classroom. So I was really trying to figure out, like, how do I live a better lifestyle and do the things that I want to do, write stories or fiction or be able to coach and teach, but not in the classroom for 8 hours, especially with young children. And so I was dealing with all of this at that point in time. And that's what the switch and the light bulb came, that if I didn't do something different, this probably would be another 6 years of my life. And I was not willing to give another 6 years. And so for me, it was like a light bulb that came on. I was like, I have to do something different. I have to figure out this big dilemma and this problem, and I can't put it off another day. And so that's the day I actually looked up different types of opportunities I could do. YouTube had just really gotten big. This is around 2015. And folks were like making a living off YouTube. And I was just like, what could I do with writing? And that's when I came across career coaching and resume writing. And that's when the light bulb hit.
There was a time when you were applying to almost 200 jobs a month. Despite getting rejected over and over again, what kept you going?
I had never failed that miserably consistently. For me, I went to a very talented and gifted middle school. I went to a very talented and gifted high school. And at the time, I had never gone through a situation where I was consistently failed. So I was applying, I had a degree, and no job was calling me back. No person was saying, hey, you know what? We see an interest in you. And because I was failing so miserably, I was like, I have to figure this problem out. Obviously, my motivation at the time was not number one, to get out of debt, because I was in debt, again, going to see this young lady, spending thousands of dollars. And I was making literally it was like $20, $21 an hour. So my lifestyle, for the lifestyle I wanted, I had to do something different. And then I was taking care of my grandmother at the time who was ailing. And so it was just a lot of pressure on me to figure this thing out. The second thing is, I said, if I'm having this problem, and I'm not going to say I'm the smartest guy, but I'm definitely talented and I've went to these great schools and I've had great education, then I know other people are experiencing the same thing. And if I can figure out a solution to the problem, then I think I'm on to something. So it was like an inner push and motivation. I don't know. I just couldn't quit on myself. I couldn't quit on myself. I had quit so many other aspects and dreams that I had at that time when I was in my early 20s, but I just would not quit on this project. And so after 9 months of training myself on YouTube, reading every single book I get my hands on at the library, or if I was ordering from Amazon, on career, how to get a persuasive resume in front of the right recruiters, how companies hire, it literally changed my life. And I started testing out what I was reading and I started getting results. So before the 9 months, I would get no responses. Out of every 10 jobs, no one would call me back. But after the 9 months, I started getting 4 out of every 10 jobs I started to apply for. So I was actually practicing this knowledge in real time. And because I was practicing the knowledge in real time and seeing results for myself, I knew I was on to something. And if I stayed the course, that's how I said, you know what? I could actually turn this into a business. And that's what I did.
What is one thing that rejection taught you that success never could?
Failure, there's three things. Failure is a learning tool. And it's a lot of times the best thing, but we cannot take it personally. Because I failed consistently and often, and I was able to see the corrections each time I failed of how I could get better, how I could do better in real time. But I needed to fail to make sure that when I started my business, by this time I had written dozens of resumes and I knew myself because I had tested the idea and failed myself. And I knew I could get the results for the clients because I started to see results for myself. So failure was a definite part of the process. And before I came up with this idea and really stayed consistent with it, I took it personal. I quit on myself a lot of times for other projects and other business ideas that I had. But I realized this time, I said, you know what? Instead of me taking it personally and blaming myself, I'm stupid, I don't know everything, I can't do it. Why don't I analyze how I could do it better or how I could do it differently? And that light bulb came on with this business and it's changed my life because I stayed consistent with one thing. That brings us to number two. Now I started other ideas and I was okay with failing. So not only did my career coaching business take off, but I started tutoring. I started learning how to do the stock market. And I started tackling a lot of complex businesses using the gifts that I had. I was tutoring, I was teaching folks how to do the stocks because I had also identified my gift of teaching. I just didn't want to teach in the classroom. And I also was scared before I started this coaching in business because I would quit on myself. And I would have never stuck through the process to get the result. So the third thing that this taught me was that in many times your business has to be adaptable, and it can be adaptable because every customer would ask questions. Every customer taught me how to better my business practices so that I'm faster, I'm leaner. I have a CRM, I have a website. I would jot down the problems I had with the customer or the testimonials of the customer. And I think that this process is so needed because and many times, at least for me, I thought the folks on YouTube would say it's 30-day process and you have this dream of you being successful. And this took me 2 years to really master how to find the customer, how to sell yourself, how to pitch to customers, what type of customers are you talking to, your branding. And so you go down this long rabbit hole. But to answer your question, failure is a part of that rabbit hole. All great businesses must fail to continue to grow, to continue to serve. And that's what I would have quit on myself. But because I didn't quit on myself, and stayed the process. And I failed. I've had customers literally say, you're terrible, you're trash. But this was early on. But I had to realize, what could I have done better? Maybe my communication, maybe I gave them and miscommunicated the expectations that they expected. So next time, if I get this opportunity, this is what I should say. Maybe I didn't deliver in a time that was promised. So next time I need to mitigate this issue. So failure and consistent failure has taught me so much, and it's still teaching me. I'm not saying that, again, I've made it just yet, but I'm failing my way forward and I'm figuring out as I go. And it's a fun process instead of a dreaded process. I don't take it personal. I learn from my mistakes. I record things that I can do better, but I also open myself up to things I don't know by getting coaching. So there's other career coaches that I talk to that are established so that I don't have to fail more times than needed, and I can learn from other folks' failure as well.
As someone who has helped over 3,000 people find jobs, what's broken in the current job search advice world?
There's several things broken. That's a really amazing question, Mark. First thing is that folks don't get training. No one trains you in college or your university about how to brand and market yourself. And that's what applying to jobs is. You are trying to persuade your employer through your presentation orally, which is your interview, or your written presentation, which is your resume. And the second thing is, and nobody teaches you that you also need to provide evidence of the things that you've done. When I work with my clients, many of them just have a resume, but a resume will not separate you from your competitors, which are other people that are applying for the job. Then, Mark, you might say, what's going to separate me? Your work portfolio, things people can see. It's the same thing as if you go to court and the judge is not necessarily going to believe the truth. He or she is going to believe the best case that is presented of evidence. And so most folks don't prepare themselves with great evidence. There's no pictures, there's no video, there's no graphs, there's not a website. And this is the same thing in business. Why do people come to you? Why do people want to do business with you? The first thing is they're aware of your product, your creativity, your genius. And the second thing is they trust you. And that's the same thing that I teach my clients. The third thing is folks don't know how to build relationships with the employer first. So when you apply to a job, you are applying cold. They don't know who you are. Most 99% of the time, they don't know you as an applicant. So the question becomes, how do we build relationships with the employer where they not only know us, but they trust us? No one talks about that in college. I've never heard any of my clients before the coaching that they've invested that I give. No one has ever told me anything about hearing that type of information. I didn't know that information. Obviously, if I knew it, I would have applied to over 200, 300 jobs. But now I know how to build relationships so well with the employer. For example, my current job, I have no industry experience doing the job that I've been hired to do. But I have the transferable skills, but I don't have the industry experience. But because I built relationship with that employer, they took a chance on me out of other people that had the industry experience and the transferable skills. So the biggest thing I find is that job seekers don't know how to brand themselves. They don't know how to build relationships with the employers, and they've been given misinformation. You cannot just apply to the job. You must build a relationship with the employer, preferably first, and then apply after you have that relationship. Now, I will caveat this to say this takes time. This is not a quick fix, if you will. I'm not saying that you can apply and get an interview, But my strategy with my clients and why they get faster results is because we work on their LinkedIn, we work on their branding, we work on their networking strategy, we work on building their network of relationship with the employer, where the employer will find them many times and not they find the employer. And the last thing I would say is that I teach folks not to have a please pick me mentality. We're not begging the employer to pick us. We are offering our services and our products and our knowledge and our creativity to do a deal. It has to be a deal for the employer just as much as it has to be a deal for the applicant. If you come to the employer begging, please pick me, then you feel guilty when you get rejected. You feel like you've been personally attacked. Guess what, Mark? 95% of the interviews that I've gone on the last 6 years, I've gotten all of them. And the one that I did not get, because I didn't dress up to the interview, I hate to say it, they reached out to me 2 weeks later to ask me would I like to contract with them. Why did they do that? Because I did not come in with the mentality of begging. I came in with great evidence of the work that I've done with my website, my testimonials on LinkedIn. I didn't talk about my resume. I talked about the value that I would help the company achieve and the goals and the missions that it had. I'm different, and that's how my clients are different, because we come in very prepared to offer value. And that's what the employer wants to hear. They don't care about your resume. They don't care about your bio. They care about the value that they perceive that they get from your services or ideas.
It's funny because so many things that you mentioned about how to make a candidate stand out amongst this pool of candidates. It also applies the same for entrepreneurs who are looking to get a client, right? So the parallels are amazing. Let's talk about something else: belief systems. What is the most dangerous belief system the job seeker has?
Most dangerous belief system, there are three things: that they can't do the work. I've seen so many clients with a defeatist mentality before they even go on the interview. One or two things that were listed in the job description: I don't do that, or I can't do that, or I've never done that, I shouldn't apply. Then you've already taken yourself out from the running. Instead of talking from what you can't do, talk about the strengths of what you've done. And see, that's another thing of how we frame our communication to the employer. If it's something I have not done and the employer asks me about it, I'm transparent, but I quickly refocus on the strengths and things that I do offer. So I talk from, and I teach my clients and coach them from an area of, we have great skills, we have great knowledge in the areas that we do have, and this is what the value that we can offer you. And if you would like to do a deal with us, this is how we separate ourselves from our competition, versus this is what I don't have. I'm going to spend a lot of time and energy focused on the things that I don't have. And please pick me, because I work with a lot of seasoned professionals. These are professionals that have been in the market or worked for 20 or 30 years. And many of them say, I have a degree from 10 years ago, and they have preconceived notions. So I had two clients recently this last week that are over 45, and both of them felt that the market was being ageist, that they weren't getting interviews because folks said, hey, you're too old. I said, well, that's a mentality to have, and that's your perception. I said, and they both said, because I graduated, I have an MBA, but it's 10 years ago. I said, well, guess what? You can still have an iPhone 7, and I have an iPhone 14. It's still an iPhone. The software is updated. So I say, guess what? If you have an MBA and you haven't used it, you want to frame it as, what have you done recently with your MBA? Does that make sense? So how we frame And the preconceived notions that we have also go into the mindset that I teach my clients. Think about how you frame your conversations. What have you done recently? How have you brought value with your MBA? And so it's not about your age necessarily, but it's about staying open to learning and updating your software. And if you can't express how you've done that and what you've done with the last couple of years of taking courses, professional development, training, free online courses, then it shows that you're dated. It's not that you're old professional, it's that you're outdated in your software. So those are the two main things that I find is folks have a defeatist mentality, and many a times they don't update their software. They don't put effort, especially if they're switching careers. I told you a perfect example. We have clients, I've had so many clients switch careers and say, I want to do something new, but I still want to make 100,000. Guess what? You spent 20 years as a social worker, but now you want to be a project manager and you still want to make 100,000. That's not going to happen. You have to be realistic. And now, if you can show in the last year or two that you worked on some projects, how you brought a company value, that might make sense. But you have to have some realistic expectations as well. But those two I can definitely pull out. I get all the time.
What's the resume mistake that drives you crazy?
There's so many, Mark. I can literally, it's 20. The first thing is that on the top of the resume, there's folks don't have a focal point. What I mean by that, there's no heading. So I don't know if you're a project manager. I don't know if you're a forester. I don't know if you do web design. If you don't have that there, there's no clarity to your resume. I hate to say it. So because you have a list of jobs, the recruiter, the hiring manager is not going to assume to know what your latest skill set is and what the focus of your resume is. So I always tell my clients that's the first thing I look for is a big header. Obviously on my resume, it's a career coach, or it could be a career and scholarship coach, but I just keep it a career coach. The second thing is there is no achievements. There are no achievements. Not talking about your job duties. A career coach could help a person with their resume, their LinkedIn, but that's not an achievement. An achievement typically has a numerical metric to it. So I helped over 600 students fix their resume and over 400 students landed jobs. That is a job achievement because there's something that I can measure. So most folks don't have achievements. The third thing there, again, is there is no numerical metrics. If I look on your resume, there are no numbers. Numbers tell us a story. A lot of times folks say, I help a lot of customers. How many customers did you help? If we don't have numbers, then we don't have clarity. And if we don't have clarity, then we have assumptions. And if we have assumptions, then that's why they say it makes out of you and me. So a resume is a persuasive document. It is not a laundry list. So to make it persuasive, who are you persuading? Your audience is the recruiter or the hiring manager. It's not really a guessing game because the answers are in the job description. So the biggest thing that a resume that is a terrible resume or ineffective, I don't like to say a terrible, I say an effective resume, it does not have relevancy to the job that you're applying to. For example, I'm a career coach. If I take the resume that I have and apply to a project manager, I don't have the skills as a project manager unless I change the verbiage of what I've done as a career coach to make it transferable to a project manager. Project manager is going to have some supervision on there. They're going to have some strategic planning on there. They might have certain green belt, yellow belt, blue belt, different methodology of how they plan on there. So if I'm not talking a project manager's language, then the language that I'm talking does not make sense to the person, the recruiter or the hiring manager that's reviewing the resume. So most people get caught because the resume doesn't have numbers, there's no clarity, and the biggest thing is it is not relevant to the job that they're trying to apply for. Those are the three biggest killers. Now, the smaller one is the format of the resume. Private sector resumes in general, as a rule of thumb, unless you're a chief executive officer or a senior role leader, most times will be 2 pages. If you can't say what you need to say in 2 pages, it's scrapped. And the reason it's scrapped is because it typically will be assumed that, again, you can't be concise. You can't be straight to the point. Another thing I see is folks listing things that does not matter to the employer. I'm a part of a fraternity or sorority. That's great. I help at my church. That's awesome. But that's not relevant to what we're hiring for as a project manager. That's not relevant to what we're hiring for as a career coach, unless you make it relevant. Now, if you said, at my church, I work as a job coach, as a volunteer even, and I help students get employed, now it's relevant. So again, we have to be conscientious of the writing language we use when we're trying to persuade and offer our services.
There's so much conversation about the importance of a cover letter. Some people say cover letters are outdated. What are your opinion on this topic?
Cover letters are a pain, but they are needed for some jobs. It typically is it. So this is my rule of thumb. If you have the time and if this job is a job that you really want, spend the time, go the extra mile, and write a cover letter. A cover letter tells the why behind why you're applying to this particular job. That does not come from your resume. So if I read your resume is a persuasive document, but it doesn't tell the why. How do you connect with the employer? What's your particular story? How are you different as an applicant than everybody else? That's what you put in your cover letter. So your cover letter is a great tool to further the persuasive argument by connecting to the values and the mission of the employer if you use it wisely. I will let you know and be transparent. Not every company cares about a cover letter. Some companies just want you to turn in a resume. Most times it'll be in a job description, but there are companies that do require and do appreciate applicants that put forth a good cover letter, meaning that you tell your story and tell how you are different from everybody else. So I always say, if you have the time to do it and it's a job you really want, absolutely apply with not a generic chat GPT cover letter, but something that comes from the heart and also how you connect to that employer. If it's a job where it's like, if I get it, but I'm not pressed to have this employer or work here, then don't apply with a cover letter. It's not the end of the world, but that assumes that you have a really good persuasive resume.
It's funny you mentioned ChatGPT because I wanted to ask you about it. ChatGPT has become like the hammer that is hammering everything. Everything looks like a nail when you have ChatGPT in your hand, right? What would you tell the audience is the difference between a ChatGPT curated resume that looks really pretty and professional versus a resume being done by a real career coach like by yourself?
Relevancy. See, because I've been doing this so long, ChatGPT cannot replace the quality and the relevancy of how I tell your story. Because you put in some prompts in ChatGPT, ChatGPT is great for a template, a good starting place, but it will not replace the intentionality and how I can create the story that you're telling the employer and then the story that you're branding yourself. Because remember, the resume is a persuasive document. ChatGPT will give you a basic template and you still have to fill in your story. It's not going to be able to tell, it's not going to be able to translate many times all the job achievements that you've done. It's not going to be able to translate many times what you have, the value that you bought at that particular employer. And it also doesn't necessarily bridge the experiences that you have with the summary that you put at the top of your resume. It's not going to do that. That's why you need someone to comb through the resume to make it more effective. It's not also going to know the rules of how to write an effective resume. It's just going to give you a starting point. I use ChatGPT to enhance the writing, but not as the end all be all. I use ChatGPT to save me time once I know how I want my resume to sound. Because now, obviously, when I used to have to research and go through other job descriptions and try to figure out what I could put for my resume or my client's resume, and it would take me 2-3 hours to do a resume. Now, ChatGPT has allowed me to cut that time down to no more than 40 minutes. But that's with someone that is trained and has the eye to make sure what you're putting out is quality and not just computer generated. It is a great effective tool to save time if you know how to write persuasively and effectively. It's the same thing as if you're coding from ChatGPT. It can definitely save you time if you know how to code. So it's the same thing in your writing. We cannot assume that ChatGPT will give you an effective resume. It'll give you a resume, but it won't be effective.
What would you say to the 2016 version of you who was struggling and just getting started if you met him today?
Hold out hope. Don't quit on yourself.
Interesting.
Love on yourself. Those are the things that I would say. It was many a nights, Mark, and I didn't quit, but I wanted to quit because I wanted immediate results. There was too much going on in my life, and it felt as if, man, this is a lot of work. This is a lot of work to read these books, to go on YouTube for hours and take notes, to feel dumb for a long time. And I would have told myself, stay the course and be in love on yourself. Encourage yourself because there is this new life that you can enter into that you're not going to feel and experience right now. But if you hold out this new life, it will make everything feel like it was so worth it. I was very hard on myself. I was very hard on myself because I said, I'm not moving fast enough. I want it now. I want it microwaved. I want it now. And there's nothing wrong with having that feeling. But I think because I was doing something so unique, I'm the first business owner that has passed a certain income in my family and has still been in business for over 10 years. And it's changed my life. It has changed my wife's life. It has changed my family life. It has changed my opportunities. So because this idea took longer than I wanted to, did not mean that it wouldn't work and I wouldn't be successful and I wouldn't have the things that I want. I just had to be patient in the process. And so that's what I would have told myself. And also find time to step away from your business. Because I've stopped and I used to work every single day. I used to have 3 jobs, Mark. I'm not unique necessarily, but I was grinding. I was killing myself every day at the table. I missed so many parties with friends. I missed relationships because I was so 100%. We talked about that. I gave all of what I had to the business, but life was still happening around me. Those early years were hard. They were tough because my friends said, hey, I didn't invite you because we knew that you would say no. The women that I dated said, hey, it was good while it lasted. We used to go out, we used to have fun, but you're always working. So the early years really taught me to now step away from time and treat self and spend time with my family and focus on having fun with my friends and living while I have and living in the moment. I'm still at the business development stage. So if I don't go out for clients, a lot of times they won't hear about me. So there is a time that I focus on strictly working, but I have to stay balanced. I still want to have a great marriage. I still want to spend time with my kid. I still want to show up as, and I'm an entrepreneur, just to let folks know, I'm not an entrepreneur. So I have a job full time and I still have to show up at my job. So I can't consistently give 100% to one thing in one aspect, even if it is successful in my life. I have to find ways to have some of the things that I want, but also balance having the success in other areas of my life. And that's what I would have told myself. Be grateful, be humble, be kind, and just appreciate the learning process. That's what I definitely would have told myself early on.
If you have a little daughter, if your daughter listens to this episode at 18, what is one thing you want her to hear from this episode?
Your dad has been committed to establishing a vision where you can have it easier, a bit easier than I had it with the opportunities, whether you want to go to school, to college, whether you want to travel the world and become a vlogger, you will have more options. Your dad loves you and has been committed, yes, to his own success, but now to the family empowerment, the family success. And many of the actions and decisions that I've taken has had vision for the future so that you have better options than I was given and you have a better spades hand than I had. But ultimately, I want you to be free of mind, to make some great decisions, to fail, to learn from some of my failures, to have a enhanced life. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but hopefully it'll be easier and you'll be able to attain happiness a lot faster. So that's what I would tell her in the future.
Wonderful words. Audience members who want to connect with you, where can they find you, Dominic?
So thank you again, Mark, for this amazing experience. Audience members that want to connect with me can go to my website, seasonprocareers.com. Again, that's seasonprocareers.com. It is misspelled intentionally. It's a little jokey, but it's SEASOND, procareers.com. I'm also on Instagram. I have an amazing jobs group where I post jobs every single day, internships, scholarships, apprenticeships, fellowships, all sorts of ships are posted on Instagram. You're more than welcome to follow me, D Weeks 2000 on Instagram. And I also can give you my Discord, which is on Instagram as well for more jobs. If you don't live in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, that's where I post most of my opportunities. I post across the United States, jobs in my Discord group. But anyway, I always give out my number. Folks can call me directly if they have a question about their resume, if they have a student that is in high school graduating and they don't have a scholarship. Give me a call, 301-605-5335.
Wow. Dominic, there is something to be said about a man who not only fixes a problem for himself, but also goes out to the world and offers a solution. And I think you are one of those guys. So it's been a
Thank
pleasure meeting you. And I hope to talk to you soon again.
Mark, thank you so much. This was phenomenal again being on Peak Performance Podcast. Thank you so much and God bless.
Thank you.